Zoeya's fingers were buried deep in the soil at the edge of the old flower bed. She was planting new saplings in the small garden. A gentle breeze lifted a corner of her shawl, brushing her face repeatedly, and she absent-mindedly pushed it away. Soil had smeared across her cheeks and hair, but she was unaware. A rare calm rested on her face, as if she had no knowledge of the outside world, of the looming threat in the mansion. Reactors' positions. Zoeya, kneeling by the flower bed, fingers digging in the soil, head slightly bowed, eyes half closed in contentment. The tranquility existed only because the executioner wasn't present. If he were around, Zoeya would have stayed hidden in her room, never daring to step outside. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps and panicked. Breathing froze her hands mid-motion. She turned to see Nasima Kala, the mansion's long-serving attendant, hurrying toward her, breathless and anxious. Bibi Zoeya, she called, panic clear in her voice. Zoeya lifted her head, astonished. It was unusual for Nasima Kala to come running like this. What's wrong, Nasima? Is everything all right? Why do you look so troubled? Zoeya asked, finally noticing her. Nasima Kala quickly adjusted her shawl, catching her breath. Bari Begum Sahib is looking for you. Mubashir Sahib is returning. She specifically asked me to inform you. Make sure your clothes are neat, comb your hair, and apply proper makeup. No complaints should reach him. He should lack for nothing. Last time, she had many complaints about the Begum, and this time she is even angrier. Reactors' positions. Zoeya, standing slowly, brushing soil from her hands, eyes widening. Nasima Kala, standing slightly hunched, one hand on her shawl, chest rising and falling quickly, anxious expression. A shadow of worry replaced the astonishment in Zoeya's eyes. Her heartbeat raced. The very thought of his return was terrifying. She quickly stood up, brushing off her hands. Mubashir is coming, but he was in England. His return was next month. How, are you lying? Reactors' positions, Zoeya, trembling slightly. Small frown of worry, hands moving nervously through her hair. Nasima Kala. Shoulders shrugged helplessly, lips pressed together. Don't joke like this. My heart is racing, Zoeya muttered. Fear made her frame almost shake. The peace she had enjoyed in the mansion vanished instantly. Nasima Kala said calmly but firmly, I don't know. Bibi, I just delivered the message. Bari Begum is furious. She wants you sent at once, lest Mubashir Sahib arrives and sees you in this state. Heaven forbid the servants get into trouble. Zoeya ran her hands through her hair, smoothed her wrinkled clothes, and took a deep breath. Is Mother Begum really angry? But I came after asking her, she thought, caught in her own worries. She knew well that when Bari Begum was angry, even small matters could escalate into slaps or worse. The previous time had been no small ordeal. Reactors' positions. Zoeya, standing. Hands fidgeting with her hair and clothes, chest rising and falling quickly, jaw tight. Nasima Kala, bent slightly, tidying the flower bed, careful not to leave anything scattered. Zoeya's face darkened with anxiety. Even thinking of Mubashir made her hands and feet go cold. She stood for a moment, then silently lowered her head and hurried toward the mansion. Behind her, Nasima Kala bent down, collecting scattered plants. If Bari Begum saw disarray, it could bring unnecessary trouble upon the innocent girl. Hence, she took care to arrange everything neatly. Mubashir Beg sat neatly on a chair, his shirt perfectly pressed, a laptop bag slung over one shoulder. His eyes were fixed on his mobile screen. Fingers scrolled absent-mindedly, and a faint crease of concentration marked his forehead. At that moment, the distinct click of high heels and a rush of strong perfume approached. He tilted his head slightly. Zarina Iqbal, dressed in a Western, body-conscious outfit, had taken the seat beside him. Long, open hair, red lipstick, and intense fragrance, enough to unsettle anyone. Yet Mubashir Beg, completely indifferent. He ignored her with practiced ease and returned to his mobile. Zarina, with a playful tilt and soft tone, said, Hello, Mubashir, shall we go back together? Why did you come to the airport alone? I waited for you at the office. I thought you'd pick me up. Mubashir Beg didn't see the need to respond immediately. After a few moments, she added, It seems you don't intend to talk. Well, when will you next come to our office? She smiled faintly, her tone measured yet teasing. Finally, he looked up from his phone, scanning the passing travelers. Then slowly he said, I'll try to come soon. But I know why you're sitting here, why you're talking this way. I am very straightforward. I give no false hopes, no ambiguous signs. So let me clear this misunderstanding now, so later you won't blame me. Why didn't I stop you? My wife is already present in my village. I am married. My wife's name is Zoeya Mubashir Beg. She is beautiful, innocent, and mine. Zarina jerked her head away, surprise and irritation flashing across her face. Her ears turned red, not because of insult, but because he was married. Mubashir Beg's tone was cold and measured. He was sincere, protective, and affectionate. If any unnecessary thoughts cross your mind, discard them now. I only see her. She is very dear to me, close to my heart. My parents' choice, and most importantly, mine. It's better you keep a distance. We remain professional. That's better. Zarina sat silently for a few moments, words lost on her tongue. She didn't know how to respond. The realization of his marriage ignited a sharp, uncomfortable heat in her chest. Her heart raced. He was married. That truth burned through her. Finally, she said quietly, I can't believe it. Mubashir Beg, you hid this from me. This is outright deception! You didn't say a single word on the entire trip. You didn't tell me you weren't single. Her mind was in turmoil. Mubashir Beg smiled coldly, measured and precise. What is there to hide? This is my personal life. Who is in it, how important she is, these are my affairs. Besides, I never mix personal matters in professional life. Especially, I never discuss my wife with anyone outside. With due respect, I am telling you clearly, she does not like it. So maintain a distance, please. Zarina stood, hand on her hip, anger simmering. Whatever Zarina Iqbal likes, she gets. And every word you've said, you will account for. Every single word carries a price. You don't know her yet. There is pride, ego, and the sting of vengeance in her words. She walked away, high heels clicking sharply on the floor. Mubashir exhaled deeply, shaking his head. What trouble? I should have told her from the start. But Zebran stopped me for no reason. Now who knows what this girl will cause? He murmured to himself, sliding the phone into his pocket, resting his neck against the chair. The airport speaker announced the next flight. Yet in Mubashir Beg's eyes, only one face lingered. The innocent one waiting for him at the mansion, flooding his entire being with warmth and joy. Meanwhile, in her room, Zoeya's breath came in quick, irregular bursts. Her hands moved frantically inside the wardrobe, sometimes taking out a dupatta, sometimes putting it back. The soft light highlighted the anxiety on her face. A few shoes lay scattered in the corner, but her confusion didn't subside. She had no idea what to wear. On one hand, the fear of Bari Begum. On the other, the uncertainty of what the executioner might like. Her small body trembled. She muttered to herself, what should I wear? White? Too plain, blue? Old, and last time they forbade it. Why are they so conscious about my clothes? Suddenly, the door swung open. Heavy footsteps and the waft of expensive perfume announced the arrival of Bushra Begum, the matriarch known as Bari Begum Sahib. Stern eyes, a face radiating decades of authority. Zoeya immediately dropped the clothes and stood straight. Head bowed, hands shaking with anxiety and embarrassment. Bari Begum's gaze swept the room. Her voice was firm, commanding. What did the attendant tell you? Zoeya's voice faltered. She tried to answer, but no sound came out. Bari Begum repeated with cold intensity, Answer me. I called you to my room. By whose permission did you come here? Do you forget who I am? Zoeya looked up, voice trembling. Forgive me, Masai. The attendant said Saiji would arrive, so I was taking out clothes. I didn't want to make a mistake. I apologize. Bari Begum exhaled slowly, eyes softening slightly. She took Zoeya's hand and guided her to sit beside her on the bed. The faint hum of the air conditioner was the only sound. Then in a softer tone, she said, I know my words may hurt you, but the truth is, Zoeya Mubashir loves you. Love is a small word. He adores you. That is why I ensure every aspect of my son's life is taken care of by you. I'll just say this, Bushra Begum said, her tone firm, authoritative. Rusty is in your hands. Your husband is utterly foolish. That's why it's better for a wife to draw her husband closer to herself. Listen carefully. Your husband sits with new girls every day. He's in England, meaning he's surrounded by girls whose dressing is beyond modest. Better he looks elsewhere. You, Zoeya, should start attracting him toward yourself. Her eyes locked onto Zoeya's, sharp and commanding. From now on, deliberately, wear slightly revealing clothes in front of him. Anything that draws his attention. Look, Zoeya, I want to become a grandmother now. My dream is to see a child in your arms. I cannot tolerate Majid any longer. He never listens. Whenever I mention Rusty, he dismisses it. Not now, he says. Zoeya is too young. Too young? Bushra Begum snapped. I ask you, are you not 19 now? How is she too young? Zoeya's hands trembled. She said nothing, only bowed her head, twisting the dupatta nervously in her fingers. Her eyes were caught in a storm. She felt deep shame, her heart sinking, yet she couldn't respond. Bushra Begum continued, her instructions relentless. What to cook, when to appear, which posture to maintain in front of him. Zoeya listened silently. She knew questions were forbidden. Only obedience was allowed, and disobedience meant punishment, merciless and absolute. Hours passed. The night blanketed the mansion in deep silence. Only the sound of rain against the tin roofs broke the stillness, scattering droplets into playful melodies. Zoeya sat quietly in a corner of her room, draped in the carefully chosen clothes of Bari Begum. White salwar kameez, faintly fragrant. A red dupatta, cascading from her head to her shoulders. She looked like a vision of Eid night. A delicate, ethereal girl, irresistibly beautiful. If Mubashir Beg was enamored, it was perfectly justified. Any man could be captivated by her innocence and charm. Yet Bushra Begum was wrong in her assumptions. Her son had fallen for her from the moment. He saw her, not for her appearance alone, but because she seemed fragile, delicate, a treasure to protect. The rain outside intensified. Zoeya raised her arms to the sky, feeling the droplets on her skin. Her lips curled into a carefree smile. Her face glistened under the rain, the dupatta slipping slightly over her shoulder. She was lost in her world, unaware that the very enemy she had feared since morning had arrived. Suddenly, a shift in the air. Someone's presence. For a few moments, Zoeya froze, sensing someone near. Her body barely moved. She turned, and the next moment her breath caught. Mubashir stood there, arms crossed over his chest, a light stubble marking his serious face, glistening under the rain. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment. Her heart raced so fast it felt like it might leap from her chest. She stood rooted to the spot, watching him approach. Slowly, deliberately, he took steps toward her, his gaze fixed on her attire. A shiver ran through her body. "This kameez, your waist is visible," he said in a cold, husky tone. "Come inside now." Zoeya lowered her eyes. Embarrassment burned her cheeks. "Assalamu alaikum, say. I was just going inside," she murmured, her voice trembling. Ignoring her greeting, he gently grabbed her wrist, leading her inside with soft steps. His intention was to guide her to her mother's room, but seeing his wife in such a state, he chose her own room instead. Once inside, he released her wrist. Zoeya stood silently against the wall, her heart hammering. He moved toward the wardrobe. Zoeya whispered, almost inaudibly, "You freshen up. I'll change first." She could barely lift her gaze. Mubashir cast a glance at her, eyes lingering on her clothes. "You look good in this. Wait. I'll get you something to wear." "A vest. No problem sitting outside afterward." Zoeya's eyes dropped. She twisted the edge of her dupatta in trembling fingers, breaths uneven. She wanted to flee, but his presence was overpowering. Suddenly, the mansion's lights went out. Darkness engulfed the room. Zoeya recoiled in surprise. Mubashir swiftly pulled his mobile from his pocket, turned on the flashlight. The room lit up, soft yet bright enough to illuminate their forms. "Don't worry," he said gently. "The staff will start the generator. I'll get you something." Zoeya nodded silently, standing frozen. The walls reflected the soft mobile light. A moment later, he handed her a white vest, stepping close. Zoeya felt herself pressed gently against him. "Your clothes will get ruined," she said, alarmed. "Let me take it to the bathroom to change." He whispered in her ear, husky and commanding. "Why be shy in front of your husband? You were bathing outside under the sky without care. Change in front of me." Her body trembled. Fear coursed through her. She wanted to refuse, yet the look in his eyes left her powerless. Hesitantly, she changed clothes while he silently held the light, watching. Balma's gaze began to slide over her existence. Her complexion had changed. Her breathing had become rapid. He turned helplessly while, the moment she got a chance, she had fled from the room through the corridor. Unaware of this, the next person was in a state of shock. He couldn't move from his spot for a while. Moments later, as if he had returned to the world of consciousness, he quietly moved towards the washroom to change his clothes and meet his mother. Time passed slowly. It was the late hours of the night. The entire mansion was submerged in darkness. The rain had stopped long ago, but the air remained damp and cold. Mubashir lay on the bed in the dim atmosphere of his room, Even during dinner, she hadn't left her room, while his eyes were searching for her. Begum had sent a servant to her room once or twice, but she had refused, saying she wasn't feeling well. She knew her mother would be very angry in the morning, but she had arranged everything in her mind so that she could explain herself, unaware, however, that her husband would not be understanding. He stared at the ceiling, replaying the earlier scene in his mind. Zoya dancing joyfully in the rain, her innocent face drenched, her anxiousness in soaked clothes, her cheeks reddened with shyness. All these images circled in his mind like pictures. Suddenly, an involuntary smile appeared on his lips. He turned over, took a deep breath, and sat up on the bed. He remained silently seated for a few moments. Then, after thinking, he got up quietly and stepped out of his room. He knew his innocent life would be troubled, but he no longer cared. The scene he had witnessed had illuminated 14 layers of his consciousness. The corridors of the mansion were deserted, every door closed, every room silent. He reached Zoya's room and tried the door lightly. It was locked from the inside. Surprised, he raised his eyebrow, though he had repeatedly warned her not to lock the door. But today was different. Thinking this, he shook his head. He glanced around. Everything was in place, no movement. Then slowly, he put his hand in his pocket, took out the master key and opened the door boldly. For a moment, he felt like a thief, but he shook his head and quietly closed the door behind him. In the darkness of the room, the moonlight streamed softly through the window, casting a gentle light on Zoya, who lay asleep on the bed. Her face was peaceful, her breathing steady. Mubashir walked slowly toward her bed and stood there for a few moments, gazing at her. His heart raced, his face sweating, yet he felt no fear. This innocent sleeping form was his refuge. There was a strange tenderness in her eyes, a pull that drew him closer rather than pushing him away. As he sat on the edge of the bed, Zoya shifted slightly, her eyes opening as if waking from a dream. He didn't reach out. He knew that if he touched her even slightly, she would scream, and he wanted no commotion at that moment. After a few moments, as her mind fully awakened, she sat up suddenly. "Saiji," her voice trembled. Her heart raced, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. The earlier incident had already unsettled her. She had never imagined facing Mubashir this way. Mubashir looked at her intently, and then spoke in a moderate but firm tone. "After I left, how did you become so bold? What is this attire?" He referred to the nightdress with the top button undone, revealing her deep neckline, which sent shivers down his spine. "Who gave this to you?" His tone softened, eyes fixed on her neck. A hint of guilt appeared on her face. Zoya looked down shyly. "Forgive me, Saiji, I won't wear such clothes again." She was instantly delicate and timid. He was the only person she trusted completely. He remained silent for a moment. Then, softening, he moved his face closer to hers and said gently, "I never forbade you from wearing such clothes. You may wear them, but only in front of me." His gaze traveled over her beautiful pink face. Zoya looked at him briefly, then quickly lowered her eyes. Her cheeks turned pink, eyes moist, and she slightly tilted her head so that he could lift it with his finger under her chin. "You are very beautiful. Today's scene has made me realize something. You have truly become a complete woman. I was foolishly considering you a little girl. Mother was right. You are now worthy of marriage." His tone carried weight. Zoya's heart almost stopped. Her lips trembled. She tried to speak, but no words came out. She remained silent, knowing that any objection could anger her mother. He continued, now commanding gently, "One more instruction. Tomorrow, after breakfast, go to Begum and tell her you wish to have your rukhsati. Farewell. I will handle the rest. If you do not comply, Zoya, you will see a side of me I do not wish to reveal." Zoya immediately responded, "No, mother will be angry. Saiji, girls do not speak like this." This time his tone was filled with innocence. He looked at her innocent expression with affection, but then he said sternly, "Do as I said. No need for unnecessary instructions. Understood?" Zoya pressed her lips and nodded slowly. Her breath quickened. Her heart trembled. Mubashir watched her for a few moments, then quietly fastened her button and said, "Be careful. I do not want your life in trouble after rukhsati." His fingers sent shivers through her entire being. He stood up and walked out quietly, closing the door softly, leaving only the sound of her heartbeat and the lingering touch of his fingers in the room. Time passed slowly. The next morning, sunlight poured into the room through the curtains, giving everything a fresh glow. The air was crisp, everything felt new. Mubashir stood before the mirror, wearing a white shirt with a blue tie. a slight smile on his face. He recalled the events of last night, lost in his own happiness. His lips sometimes smiled, sometimes his eyes seemed to question themselves. Life had become so beautiful. He had never imagined that the one he desired would be so easily within reach. The thought alone filled him with joy. Suddenly, the silent atmosphere was shattered by the loud ringtone of his mobile. Startled, he picked up the phone from the table. The screen displayed the name of Assistant Zebran. A crease appeared on his forehead for a moment, then he quickly answered the call. "Yes, Zebran?" The other side carried Zebran's anxious voice. "Sir, the England project has been suspended. Did Mubashir's smile vanish?" His face became serious instantly. "What nonsense are you talking about? All our documents were ready, signatures completed. How could it suddenly be suspended? Was there a problem? You investigate. They cannot suspend our project without informing us. It's unfair." His mind was spinning. "Sir, we ourselves do not understand. They just said the deal cannot be finalized. Not only that, the other project in Islamabad was also halted. From there, the reply was the same. We will no longer work with you. We are contracting with another company. Who knows what suddenly happened to these two companies? Everything had been managed until last night. The Islamabad project dealers were constantly in contact with him. Mubashir held his head helplessly. This must be Miss Serena's doing. Who else could have quickly halted two major projects? That woman was unnecessarily targeting him. "I told you before to warn this lady that I am married, but you—" He stopped me for no reason, and now look at the mess. Zebran hesitated and said, "Sir, you are right. But if Miss Serena is really behind all this, we will have to handle the matter very carefully. The projects, as well as the company's reputation, could be affected. That lady has considerable influence. One wrong move from her could ruin our entire career." Mubashir took a deep breath and said, "Fix a lunch with her immediately. I will speak to her directly. Now it's time that the matter is discussed openly." "Yes, sir. I'll try. I'll get it confirmed quickly. And sir, make sure no one else finds out about this. Especially the media. Absolutely not. If the media gets wind of this, all our projects could be stopped unnecessarily." "Yes, sir." Mubashir ended the call and stood silently for a few moments. His mind was racing. He had invested months of hard work, millions in investment, and the company's efforts into these projects. Everything was crumbling in an instant. And the reason was only a stubborn, self-centered woman. He steadied himself, took a deep breath, and slightly parted his lips. "What kind of trouble has fallen on me? Oh God, have mercy." The tie that had been half-tied was now fully undone in his hands. His face had turned serious in the mirror. The sparkle in his eyes had now shifted to anger, as if he was ready to take control of the game and had no intention of losing at any cost. The sun was shining brightly in the sky. The corridors of the mansion echoed faintly with the morning's hush. Zoya was slowly walking toward Begum Bashra's room. Her heart was racing. Her hands were trembling. As she opened the door, a faint wisp of incense-like smoke floated out. The room was dimly lit, the heavy curtains drawn, and a quiet atmosphere prevailed. Begum Bashra sat on her lounge, leaning on the pillows, instructing the maid about the food arrangements. As soon as she saw Zoya, she glanced at her and said in a cold tone, "Go outside. We will talk later." The maid immediately nodded and left the room. Zoya took a few steps forward, hands folded, and said softly, "Salam, Masaiji." Begum Bashra looked at her sharply and said sternly, "Come here and stand in front of me. Do you not know how to speak respectfully? I told you to wear the clothes given to you by Mubashir. Why didn't you wear them?" Zoya lowered her eyes and, in a trembling voice, said, "Masaiji, I felt embarrassed. The clothes were very different. And yesterday, too, that incident." Begum Bashra immediately interrupted. "Incident? What do you mean?" Confusion spread across Zoya's face for a moment as she recalled the scene from the night, Bashra's gaze, his manner of conversation, and the moments when she had turned her head. She quickly said, "Masaiji, I have something else to discuss with you." A crease formed on Begum Bashra's forehead. "First, tell me, why didn't you have breakfast? And where were you last night? You weren't in your room either. What is going on?" Zoya bowed slightly and said, "Masaiji, I met Saiji last night. That's why I didn't leave my room. I felt too shy to go in front of him." She was hesitantly explaining each detail. Begum Bashra's tone remained strict. Zoya took a deep breath and then softly said, "Masaiji, he is willing. Saiji asked me to tell you that now it's time for Rukhsati. Farewell." Hearing this, Begum Bashra stood up immediately. eyes wide with surprise, a spontaneous smile spreading across her lips. "You're not lying, are you?" Zoya quickly shook her head in denial. There was a faint blush on her face, but a sparkle in her eyes. Begum Bashra gently patted her forehead and said, "All right, go and rest." "I will speak to Mubashir myself," Zoya replied softly. "Yes, Masaiji," and quickly left the room, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. As she stepped outside, her breathing returned to normal, and she smiled faintly, as if her heart had sighed in relief for the first time. If she isn't truly in his life, then someone else already is. Talking to him in this way is not appropriate in any sense. She spoke in an extremely stern tone. "That Zoya of yours, whom you call your childhood's trust, does she truly deserve this place? Tell me yourself, can she assist you in business? Can she be your partner on your level?" Mubashir looked at her with cold eyes and replied softly yet firmly, "She has given peace to my heart, Zarina, and I do not sacrifice matters of the heart for business partnerships. As for your England or Islamabad projects, that was your effort, your decision. Whether you had them suspended or terminated, I do not consider that my defeat. I am capable enough to stand again. And remember this, no relationship is ever built solely on the foundation of business." With that, he began to rise. Pushing back his chair, he pulled out his phone and took a step forward. Zarina's icy voice rang out behind him. "Remember one thing. Mubashir Beg, I am Zarina Iqbal. I have never learned to lose in life. And that so-called Zoya of yours, she will not escape me. I will put her in her rightful place." Mubashir halted. Slowly, he turned back and looked at her, his eyes hard and his tone unshakably firm. "First reach that place, then I'll see you." With that, without another word, he strode quickly out of the restaurant. Zarina glared at his retreating figure, her fists clenched in fury. Her face flushed red, her eyes fixed on the very spot where Mubashir had stood moments earlier. In the faint music of the restaurant, the noise of her seething breath drowned everything else. The sun was now bending toward the west, the sky bathed in a faint orange glow. At the back of the mansion, the garden radiated a peaceful atmosphere. She was sitting on the ground, carefully tending to her little flower beds. The edge of her dupatta was soiled with earth, and stains dotted her white dress, yet she seemed unconcerned, absorbed in her work. She loved nurturing her garden. That was why Ma Begum had allowed her this space at the back of the mansion, where she often spent entire days. Moments later, she heard the sound of footsteps. Startled, she looked up, and there stood Mubashir, hands in his pockets, a faint smile on his lips as he watched her. Flustered, she tried to stand quickly, but her foot caught in her dupatta, and she lost her balance, falling back to the ground. Mubashir chuckled softly, walked over, and sat beside her. Brushing the dirt from her hair, he said gently, "You shouldn't sit like this in the evening, with your hair loose among the plants and trees. Do you know why? Because jinn and witches fall in love with hair. Then they'll take you away with them, and I'll be left behind." She listened wide-eyed, gasping. "Really, Sainji? Even Ma Begum tells me not to go out in the evenings." Fear constricted her breath. He laughed. "Oh, don't be scared, though. You do look like a witch, just a little less. She will die, and only then will I be at peace. If I can't have you, I won't let her have you either. You are my choice and mine alone." Mubashir's restraint finally snapped. He advanced on Zarina, seized her arms, and roared, "I swear to God, if anything happens to her, I will burn you alive." Madness gleamed in Zarina's eyes. She smiled and said, "If you want to save her, go to the back storeroom of my bungalow. That's where I've had a bomb fitted. It will explode and your Zoya will die." She looked like a deranged soul. The moment he heard this, Mubashir shoved her aside and ran frantically toward the storeroom at the rear of the bungalow. His breath came ragged, his footsteps flew, and his heart repeated just one prayer: "Allah, keep my Zoya safe." Crossing the last few steps, he reached the locked storeroom door. Taking a deep breath, he hurled his full weight against it. With a crash, the door gave way, dust swirling through the air. Panting, he rushed inside. Through a broken window, faint light seeped in, his eyes instantly fixed on the pillar before him. Zoya was tied there, sitting on the ground, trembling, her tear-filled eyes brimming with terror. When she saw Mubashir, she cried out between sobs, "Sainji, save me! That woman brought me here. I'm so scared." Mubashir rushed to her side, untying her hands. "Nothing will happen to you. I'm here. I told you not to go anywhere. Why don't you ever listen? Why do you make me so restless? His state was like a man who once had everything, now watching it all slip away. Sobbing, Zoya whispered, I didn't know this would happen. She's so cruel. She even hit me. Mubashir saw her face, swollen and red. His heart broke. I will not spare that woman alive. He quickly bent to untie her feet. Just as he was loosening the last rope, his eyes caught something in the shadow behind the pillar, a metallic plate. Looking closer, he realized it was a bomb device, and Zoya was sitting right above it. His hands began to tremble, fear draining the color from his face. He collapsed to the floor, pulled out his phone, and dialed his assistant. Send someone from the bomb squad immediately. Hurry, we only have minutes. Zoya, sensing his panic, whispered in terror. Sanji, if this bomb explodes, I'll die. Mubashir looked at her. His eyes welled with tears, but his expression was firm and resolute. Nothing will happen to you as long as... She slowly held his hand and leaned against his chest. I didn't know if I would get the chance or not, she said softly. But today, I want to say that I am very afraid of you. Yet, despite that, I love you deeply. After my parents, you are the only one in my life. If something happens to me, promise me you will remarry. Stay happy and move forward in life. Mubashir immediately pulled her back a little, looked straight into her eyes, and said firmly, Stop it, Zoya. Don't talk such nonsense. Nothing will happen to you. You are with me, and you will always remain with me. From outside, the wailing sirens of ambulances and police could be heard. Time was slipping away quickly. He glanced once at his watch. Time was almost over. He had to gather courage. Placing one arm around Zoya's neck and the other beneath her legs, he lifted her into his arms, shouting Allahu Akbar, and he leaped with all his strength towards the warehouse door in the final moments before the blast. Behind them, the ticking of the bomb held its breath. In an instant, everything ignited. The explosion shook the ground. The walls trembled, and the warehouse was engulfed in flames. His quick thinking had saved both their lives. Mubashir, holding Zoya tightly, fell to the ground outside. The heat of the fire singed his clothes and blackened his face. His breathing was ragged. Zoya was unconscious, eyes closed, body limp. For a few moments, he lay on the ground, heartbeat erratic, mind numb, until it felt as if someone shook him awake. With trembling hands, he tapped Zoya's cheeks. Zoya, Zoya, open your eyes. Nothing must happen to you. Please, open your eyes. You're fine, you're safe. The bomb disposal officers had begun entering the scene. Gibran quickly brought him some water and sprinkled it on Zoya's face. After a few seconds, her eyelids fluttered. She let out a faint groan and slowly opened her eyes, looking at Mubashir. Sanji! Her voice was weak. Mubashir's lips quivered. Tears rolled down his face uncontrollably. Thank God you regained consciousness. You nearly took my life away with yours. Zoya gave a faint smile. You're alive. That's all that matters. He pulled her into his arms. If you are here, then I exist. You are my life, Zoya. You are the reason I live. If something had happened to you today, I would have ended right there with you. For a few moments, they clung to each other, as if every pain and trial had been washed away in that embrace. Soon after, more fire brigades and police vehicles arrived. Rescue teams began extinguishing the flames. Zarina, who had been watching from afar, was caught by the police. Gibran had already reported everything. The moment handcuffs locked around her wrists, her arrogance collapsed to the ground. From a distance, Mubashir looked at her and said, One who turns love into a game of pride can never win. You wanted to destroy Zoya, but ended up destroying yourself. Zarina stayed silent, her eyes filled with defeat and a deep line of regret etched on her face. A few days later, Zoya had fully recovered. The atmosphere in the mansion had changed. Zoya and Mubashir sat together in the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold. Zoya held Mubashir's hand and said, Sainji, I always wished for a simple life, but you showed me that true love survives through sacrifice. Mubashir kissed her hand gently. And you showed me that when love is real, it can return even from the mouth of death. They looked into each other's eyes and smiled. The breeze carried fragrance all around, but in their hearts, there was only one thought. Thank God, love had won.